Everyone knows he's getting sick.
Yeah, yeah, same. Uh, oh yeah, I can just delete this because I completely. Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, let's talk about your account. So you get or your character, I guess mainly. You got your
Yep.
Nightwalker out here. Can you give us a little bit of background information on like what your, how much do you play? Have you played
uh,
for a long time? That kind of stuff.
so I've been playing since like basically the start of Maple,
Mm-hmm.
but after like when Big Bang happened and all that stuff, and then Q started happening, that's like when I quit. I think the last time I played seriously was like when Empress was the best gear. And then recently came back. So I had this character created when Reboot started, so I have the Ghost Ship badge, which
Mm-hmm.
everyone wants apparently. Because like I heard that they removed it.
Yep.
But yeah, I've been playing like on and off. But after the hyper burning stuff, I just decided to come back and play.
Okay. And you've been enjoying it so far? You decided on
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because before hyper burning, my main was a Pathfinder, but so that Pathfinder is like 220.
Mm-hmm.
I just unlocked the arcane on, I mean, what is it? Arcana on that
Yeah.
character,
Mm-hmm.
and before I got past that point, it just felt like a daily simulator. Like I just log on to do symbols and stuff, because that character wasn't strong enough to boss.
Okay. Sure.
But yeah, with the free like level 5 symbols and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I decided, yeah, it made the game a lot more fun.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to do like Chaos or Abyss alone and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, with whatever level of difficulty you feel is something that you're up for, right?
Yeah, 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 definitely. It's like being able to like I think like I can do like Lo Lotus and Damien
Mm-hmm.
alone, basically. Um, yeah, definitely bossing is a big part of like my enjoyment for games like this.
Okay. So you've soloed up to those two.
I've been doing before, but that
Mm-hmm.
was before this Star Force and cubing session that I did.
Okay.
But I definitely can do it alone now, I think,
Okay. So
with my stats.
yeah. So you've already spent some of your money or all of your money or
So I had the piggy bank thing was
yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I bought the collection tool or whatever,
Yeah.
and I decided to like just grind out every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I managed to buy like two of those piggy banks on two different characters, collecting money every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I had 12 bill, and I spent like 3 bill to, or like 4 bill to 17 star everything
Mm-hmm.
from scratch, and then I spent like 7 bill trying to cube. So I have like 2 bill left,
Mm-hmm.
or 2 or 3 bill left, yeah.
Okay. And you feel like that went well in general?
Yeah, yeah, so I basically tripled my range in a
Mm-hmm.
day.
Yeah.
I had 4 mil range before this.
Mm-hmm. Gonna have a bit more. That's when you mentioned range, you're aware of like the in general how much the range really tells about your damage and stuff.
Uh, so I know that range isn't like a big indicator, it's more like your main stat, I think, for your damage rate, because everyone has like different multipliers on their skills.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at, I actually have a before. I was at 16k stat.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, yeah, it's 16 to 6 seems like that's like a little bit, but everything compounding, working on each other, right? So that's
Uh-huh.
that gets you an insane amount of extra damage on the back end. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And then definitely because before on the what's it place called Esfera or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
on those maps like I couldn't one shot anything, so my bats weren't really doing anything, so I couldn't train there or do like the dailies fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely just like increasing your damage like just makes the game so much easier.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, the monsters don't really stand a chance. They can't really fight back anymore.
Yeah, just one-shotting everything because the bats fly around.
Mm-hmm. So bats are doing some decent damage now.
Yeah, they're like one-shotting all the mobs now, so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, these
And
dailies are taking like 3 times faster.
yeah, and the what's it called? The alt nodes you can get from the shop as well, right? From the Clover shop.
Yeah, yeah.
If you fast track. Okay. So are there any decisions that you've made in like the last, week or two or three where you're like you just want to check, make sure that is this like the right way to go? Is that
Yeah, definitely. Just like, I don't know where to go from, because there's like so much like things to do in this game.
mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what to prioritize or like
Mm-hmm.
what to focus on. Because I feel like when I try it before this hyperburning, I just tried like leveling Legion and stuff
Mm-hmm.
off like burning, and it actually like just burned me out. Like I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things I kind of try to warn people for because like the hyperburning definitely feels like, oh, this is really fun, really good, and we can get really strong really quickly, and it's fun to just destroy everything on the high levels.
Yeah.
But the downside is, of course, like you're never going to be that fast and that strong on any character ever again, probably, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That like
yeah.
learning that is like as good as it's going to get. That could be like a rude awakening for people as well. You've got some foundation already for your Legion, right? So you have leveled some
Uh-huh.
characters completely off. But I think
Uh-huh.
what a general rule of thumb or like general advice I give when it comes to like building out your Legion is to just classify classes into one of three groups. Basically, one that you like, that you think is fun to play. One that you think is kind of like you're pretty neutral. You're like you don't really hate it, but don't really like it either. It's like whatever. And ones that you actually just despise. That you're like I rather drag part of my body through shards of glass than have to train this thing, right? So,
Yeah,
um,
that was a Demon Avenger. That was
exactly.
like the
Like
worst one, I
everyone
think.
has,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone has some that other ones that people mention a lot is Evan, for example. People don't like the combo system too much, or some people love it. Or Mercedes is
Uh-huh.
also one that's very love and hate for people. Um,
Uh-huh.
Once you have that in your mind, or maybe if you have that written down, like where a class is, depending on their importance, I think it's still very doable for all the classes just to get them to like 120, 140. Right, like getting to 100 is very doable, and then just killing Zakum every day to get him to 140 eventually, just slowly over time. That's a very easy thing to do, right? And you can get up to 42 characters in your Legion whose levels count. So as long as you just slowly but surely work a little bit on Legion, 6k is pretty free.
Okay.
But it really comes into like once you're going past 6k, like what do you do now? And I think once you have those characters like categorized in one of those three, it really helps you when there's like, oh, there's a burning event coming on. You're like, okay, what is the group of characters that I absolutely hate? What can I, like, oh, Hyperburn, like up to 200. Sorry, not Hyperburn, Terrorburn, right? Up to 200.
Uh-huh.
Like which one
Uh-huh.
has a very good Legion block, maybe towards a level 3 link skill that's useful, right? And I'll just burn
Yeah.
that one. Or if there's like an event where you can get some extra EXP, but there's like a limited amount per character, so it's really useful for mules comparatively. If it's something where it's like unlimited extra EXP, then typically you want to have your main be the main recipient, I guess, of that kind of buff.
I see.
And if it's kind of like downtime, there's not really anything going on. Maybe there was a lot of training going on in your main, and you've been really grinding, and you need to wind down. Then like the side characters that you actually enjoy is a good idea to kind of give those a little bit more attention, because you'll start feeling the fact that you can progress again, right? Because the further you get with your main character, and that's going to be the wall that you hit once you get to 250, is everything is just so fast now and so fun and blah. And then once you hit 250, that burn is gone, and the area that you get to is a really hard area, right? Even with those level 5 symbols, they're not quite going to cut it, because you've just you don't have the amount of days on you in the character, right? And even though it can be daily simulator for quite a bit, but since you haven't even been able to play the simulator for that long, your arcane power is still it's got to be rough, right? Because right now the
Right.
nodes are keeping you up, like all of those nodes from clovers. That's all bonus with all the EXP nodes as well, right? On top of that, and then the level up symbols and all the levels, like that's pushing you there. But if you want to have some kind of semblance of maintaining that speed, like it's good to mentally already prepare for like that's going to slow down hardcore, right?
Right. Right.
That's very important that you're aware of that. Not to like be like negative Nancy, but just to be realistic in that sense. And for me, what I try to always talk about is like the baseline of like what is your normal, right? So if you are part of the generation who like always trained on totems, mainly trained when there were big events going on, and then like off event maybe did a little bit of mules or did more bossing stuff, so that you don't really have to deal with the lower rates, and you only train on big events, and then totems are gone, maybe those events are off and you want to train off, it's going to feel like you're operating on like 30% capacity or something, right? But for you mentally, I think the best thing to realize is that what you see as 30% there, that's actually 100% capacity. And when you were on totems and during events and everything, you were actually on like 300% capacity. And it's so that you can like retreat back to your baseline without feeling like you just like lost an arm or something. But that's like, oh, we're just returning to normal now.
Okay, I see.
Because as soon as you get used to a certain speed, and then everything just feels lesser, and everything feels like not worth your time. And a lot of in this game is about like how much is my time worth, and events like this will just kick you in the balls on like this is how much your time is worth. But it's a very unrealistic standard that they're setting now. So more cognizant you are of that, the more you'll be able to make the transition without it being like, well, I just basically got lied to with like a hyperburn, and now they're like expecting me to go into the grind. But that is what it is, right? They're trying to lure people in, give them a whole bunch of stuff to do really quickly, and now you feel like, oh, I can do so much every day. Now you're playing every day, and now they've got you, right? Like, that sounds very sinister when I say it like that, but that is what's behind it, right? They're trying to get players. They're a product. They're trying to get people to consume their product, right? And a lot of times people see it as like, oh, this is just fun, and I'm joining a game and I'm just strong very quickly, and then I'm in control. But yeah, you're try to actually be in control and be like, I decide how much I play, when I play, which characters I like, which characters I don't like, which event is fun, because what I see a lot of now with the clovers is Clover event is amazing, right? But how many people have you seen that are like, I hate the Clover event, it's hard to cap? And I'm like, you don't have to do it, It's
true.
You're getting free stuff. You're getting free things on top of what you already normally do. It's free bonus stuff. But people don't see 100 clovers as gaining 100 clovers. They see 100 clovers as not getting 100 that day, right? And that just fucks your brain up so much. And you want to be careful.
That's funny because before I actually bought the clover tool thing, I was like, I don't give a crap about this stuff. It's like, it takes too long. And then once I right when I bought it, I was like, oh, I gotta cap every day. Like, they got me.
yeah, exactly. Well, but it's we all get got in some kind of way, right? But it's also good to acknowledge like, oh wait, I got got. Like I need to be a little bit more careful, right? Does me buying the tool mean that I now? It's like why like subscription-based games work, right? Because it's like, oh, I paid $8 a month to log into World of Warcraft or whatever. So now I have to play like 20 hours a day to get the most value out of those $8. It's like, if you're like that, you want to be careful with that kind of decisions because it just take you for a run, right? Yeah. So only when you have like you'll have people who take like a week off work or something, be like, oh, there's a big event, like I'm just gonna take a week off work and grind hard. There's different levels of control over how you play that game, but yeah, I mean the FOMO is probably something that's activated the hardest in this game out of any game I've ever played, and they do it well. So protect yourself in that regard. But do you feel like when you play a character, you can kind of categorize them in one of those groups?
Yeah, definitely. So like you said, it's like the worst ones I had was Demon Avenger.
Ouch. Yeah. Continue.
Just. Oh, sorry. Is that your main?
Yes, my main. Yeah.
Oh, shit, my bad.
No, you're good.
Anything that's like a mage, because they feel like super clunky to me, like because they don't have like flash jump.
Yeah,
So
teleporting is quite an
yeah.
acquired taste. I agree with you there. Once you start bossing, in a lot of situations, aside from like hard will phase 3, teleporting is actually superior to flash jumping. Almost always.
Oh.
Like you have like the lasers in Lotus, every teleport class
Uh-huh.
could just teleport right through them and just stay on the bottom. Doesn't have to walk around. That's very easy for
Oh,
them.
I see. Uh-huh.
And in general, what you'll have a lot with further boss fights is you'll have stuff falling from the ceiling. And every flash jump has a slight vertical displacement as well as horizontal, right? So you're kind of
Uh-huh.
going in an arc, so you're getting closer to the stuff that's falling from the ceiling trying to hit you. Whereas if you
Uh-huh.
teleport, you're instantly and only going horizontal, so you're able to respond faster, which means you can
Uh-huh.
stay longer and get more damage in, sneak that in, and you're less likely to get hit by things that are just falling from the ceiling.
Oh.
So I agree with you, though, that like telecasting to me feels tedious, and I don't like that either. For mobbing, I definitely prefer flash jumping, but for bossing, in most situations, I would actually prefer teleport. But as you get further to like more difficult bosses, but yeah, once you do like Lotus on a teleport class, you could just stay on the bottom. And you'd be like,
Mhm.
hee hee, like everyone else
Oh
like
yeah.
jumping around,
Yep.
trying to not get stunned,
Yeah.
falling into the
Yep.
thing, robots hit, and you're just like, oh, laser is vertical, whoop, teleport through. Are you just chilling?
Yep.
Yeah. But many classes have some kind of way of getting through through the laser. Although I think, aside from like actually popping an iframe, I don't think Nightwalker does. Unless you have like a little bit of health shield that takes you slightly over 100% HP, you jump through and heal right after. But that sounds risky AF. I don't
Wait,
think
does
that
that mean
that backstep
does
is good, right? That
uh-huh.
backstep doesn't do it. I think that gets you hit.
Yeah, yeah, it does. I
Oh, you
think.
tried. Okay, yeah, good.
Unless I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Um, does that mean Blink is actually a viable option for like some classes?
Well, Blink is
The B
random, right? So,
skill? Okay.
it
I
is
see.
viable in the sense that people. So in the past, Blink did only that. Like if you pressed it, you would randomly teleport to somewhere in the map, and people in endgame
Uh-huh.
would just use it if they were in a situation where they were 100% dead. They would press it because then maybe they could survive. So it was like an ultra Hail Mary thing. But
Oh, I
now
see.
people do use it, especially if you have up jumps, and then you can blink and you can stay in the air for a while. So, for example, if you're doing Damien, right, and those big purple skulls in the first phase appear, and maybe
Uh-huh.
there's like
Uh-huh.
3 or 4 of them next to each other. If you up jump and then blink in the air, you can stay in the air above them long enough, wait for them to explode, and then just fall down again. So in that
Oh,
sense,
I see.
blink comes into play. Once you start doing Lucid, Lucid's got a dragon phase where there's a dragon coming from the side, shoots like a
Uh-huh.
giant green beam of death just like through the entire map. But if you time it well, up jump over it, blink, and stay floating up in the air, by the time you land, the
Oh.
green beam is gone again. So if you get stuck in between the golems that respawn and you can't get to the side to the safe spot, that's a way that people can survive with that skill.
Oh,
So it did
that's
gain,
cool.
yeah, it was too random before, so they gave it more utility and more value. And it also has 1 weapon attack per level, so if you level it up, eventually it's level 25, and a level 5 slot will actually give you 30 weapon attack as well, which, you know, if you go further into the game and the sources of damage become more scarce, that's actually a really nice little boost that you can get from that.
See.
Yeah, so that's how some skills that seem like pretty lackluster or maybe, yeah, unnecessary early on can actually be like, oh, there's actually some utility to it, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I got a little bit of a feel. So when you were talking about like it being more Damage Simulator, is your time per day that you get to play a little bit more limited, or does it just really depend on?
I'm about to go back to school.
Mhm.
'Cause I already have like a bachelor's, but I'm deciding to do something else. So I'm going back to school for basically another degree.
Okay. The
So
undergrad
my
or?
time, yeah, another undergrad degree.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to maximize my time per day because I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be playing like 8 hours a day trying to do like
Yep.
dailies on like 5 different characters, trying to coin cap
I get
10
that.
different with 10 different mules. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to.
Yeah. So general advice when it comes to coin capping, I would just do. So for events, I look at events this way, right? So I'll see, okay, what is possibly in this event that I would like. That's just like I look at the reward list, I look at the event shop, and then I'm like, okay, these are the things that I like. these are the high value things that I must have, you know. Maybe there's like a fairy heart or something like that, right? Like this is like super important. Or there are node stones, which are like always very important. And I would say like, what is the minimum amount that I have to do? It's, let's say that I would play like, I don't know, let's say like 80% of the days I can actually log in and do like dailies, for example. You know, like how many would I have to get per day, you know, without really straying from my regular routine too much to be able to at least get those. And then which is a group of items that would be cool to have, which would have decent value. But you're like, if I don't get them, it's not the end of the fucking world because, you know, I've got a life, basically. And then just have that in mind and then do the event for one day or just do your regular dailies for one day and then see how close you are to that number. Because I think what you'll most of the time find is if you just do regular dailies and you just do regular stuff that you want to do on a day, and that's not too bad to do, that you know is high value, so mainly like symbol dailies, right? Those are just very high value. Those will always be top of the list for, if you're trying to do anything worth utility, like that's always going to be high on the list. But if during that, you're already like in between the minimum amount that you need, you know, building in some kind of buffer of missing some days, and being able to buy some of the stuff that would be cool to have, then I think it's totally up to you in that point to be like, okay, but you know, I could do a little bit more. This is fine because there's actually a lot of stuff that's cool that I like. Or you could be like, nah, it's okay if I miss some days and those items aren't so amazing for me anyway. This is like enough. Because what I see a lot is people just pushing themselves to always have to cap, always have to cap, always have to cap. And it's not because there is a max that you need to reach it, or that if you don't reach it, you lose something. You don't lose it, you just don't get it, right? Like, very important distinction there. So what I try to do, I know that I log in every day, so I'm like, okay, if the cap is 400 a day and the store has a whole bunch of things, but I don't really need half of them, like they're not that important. If I get like 120 to 200 clovers a day, but I do that every single day, then I know that I'm going to be fine and be able to buy everything that I need. So I don't feel that pressure at all to cap, you know?
Okay, I see.
And that allows me to kind of stay with my regular routine. Now, let's say that there were like 10 piggy banks in there and they all give like 10 bill. And then you could be like, okay, well, how much time do I have in a day? So how much is my time worth if I would go for the clovers? Am I already doing other things? So, for example, for me, it was Maple Tour. I had the Maple points, so I was doing Maple Tour 7 runs a day. And then I did the maths. Okay, the runs are about a minute each. I do 5 runs extra a day. That's 1.5k Maple points a day. So 5 runs extra, 5 minutes extra per day. That's an extra 35 minutes a week. So that's like one character that I have, weekly bosses, basically. Now, how much do I make? On the Maple Tour, I make around, and there were some characters that I have built that could do weekly bosses that I wasn't doing them on, right? I was like, okay, so I'm paying 7.5k Maple points to get, I don't know how much it was, like 850 mil. But if I take one of my weekly bosses, I can do in 30 minutes, like 5 minutes less, I can make 1.2 bill without having to pay any Maple points. It doesn't make sense what I'm doing right now. So it's not about scaling up and being like, just keep piling on more stuff. It's like, what are you already doing? And is within the time that you're doing, does it make sense? So that's why I introduced the example of the piggy bank, because very rarely is your time going to be worth that much that you can make like 10 bill over capping on 4 different days, right? So if you prioritize that during an event like this, I think that makes total sense. Because how many hours would you have to grind on top of what you're already doing to make that kind of money? Like, this is a golden opportunity, literally, because it's a fucking golden piggy bank, right? But as soon as you have that, a lot of people are looking for the scrolls and being like, ooh, the 15-star, 17-star scrolls. And I'm like, okay, but look at how expensive those are compared to the piggy bank. Like, your drop in value for your time is insane immediately. Like, if you look at, especially during Shining Star Force, one of those scrolls is worth like 450 mil, and they're almost priced the same as a piggy bank. That gives you 10 bill. Like, it's 1/25 of the value, right? Yeah, this is a huge difference. And you look at the nodes, you're like, where else can you get nodes? Only event shops ever, and these are one each. Like, this is brain dead. Like, you kind of should be going for this, right? It's a shoe-in. So, but I think as long as you get your piggy banks, you buy out the nodes and the EXP nodes, I think you have everything that's like worth something. Some people want to get the chairs, like, let them get the chairs. Like, but if you really like how the chair looks, fucking go for it, right? But just be aware, like, you know, how much am I gonna have to shovel all the things around? Because I'm a very big proponent of having like a general amount of playtime that you have a day that makes sense for you in your daily rhythm, that's enjoyable to you, that doesn't impede on other responsibilities that you have. And if something else comes in, like an event, and it's making you reprioritize because of how good it is, that just means that something else that you were doing, just kind of whatever was the lowest value that you were already doing, just kind of gets pushed to the side for like a week or 2 or 3 or 4, and then when the event is over, it just comes back into the daily routine, right?
Right.
Or not.
Right.
Maybe you find that you're actually happier not having done that the whole time, so maybe you just drop it altogether, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I guess it comes down to like, what do you enjoy doing a day? Like, what do you look forward to doing when you're logging in? Because I mean,
honestly.
Bossing, yeah, yeah. Because
Yeah.
I mean, people go from like wanting to log in because there's so much stuff to do to logging
Uh-huh.
out feeling like they've missed out on so much stuff because they didn't get to do it, right? And that goes from like, the positive, happy-go-lucky, new Mapler to the jaded, like, fuck, there's not enough. I need more hours in the day to get everything done. Trying to avoid people moving from that first to the second one as much as possible. Try to keep people, looking forward to logging in and enjoying themselves. And if that means slowing down and just not aiming as high and just doing things on your own pace, then that's good. If it means, grabbing 16,000 Excel sheets and calculators and looking how to optimize like every single minute you have, then do that, But everyone approaches the game in a different way, so trying to like, get to see where you're at. But it seems like you're pretty casual approach to it, but you do want to do the higher level bosses, which that is going to take some time on the investing time into grinding, right? Because there's a lot of and that's what you said before, like status important metric. It definitely is. I think the more important metric is level, because of the damage level penalty and stuff that we have. Right, are you aware of that? Like level difference between the target, right? Like you have access to will now, but if you were to attack will now, you would do absolutely no damage, right?
Like 10% of my damage or something.
Yeah, I think at 235, if you go in and you had like 100% IED, you would do 12.5% of your damage. So yeah, since your ID is 100%, it already goes down from there, and yeah. Yeah, but like the arcane power might be below, right? And the ID is below, and the level is below, so you might actually get up to like 100% damage reduction. So you might just hit once, so actually 0% of your damage.
There's like one complaint about this game that I've had, like, because like when you go to a new area, you have to unlock it by doing those pre-quests. But then those mobs are like 15 levels higher than you, so you like don't do any damage. It takes forever.
Yeah, well, it's amplified by the fact that you've been hyperburning, right? So you get to the areas way faster with way fewer dailies under your belt, so your arcane power is suffering way more. And that, those things combined make it very hard. I don't want to sound like the old man here, but it's already way better now than it used to be. There was a time where like just the choo-choo prequest was the worst thing in the world. Like the monsters would drop the items probably at like a 5th or a 6th of the rate that they do now, and you needed progressively more as you went. Plus characters weren't nearly as strong. You had like 1/5 job at maybe a second one at the most, right? So and that's kind of the kind of like a paradox with a V matrix, is that a lot of people feel like they need more nodes because they have so much that they need that they can upgrade. But what I see is you already get so much more free damage from the get-go because of all of the amount of skills that you have and the increased amount of slots you have access to. And because of those extra things, you actually don't need that many because you already have more base damage. But it feels like you need more because there's more room to grow in there. But it also comes down to the balance, right? It's like, if you log in day one and you get 50,000 nodes and you can max everything, that's really cool for like a week, but then you have nothing to work on anymore. But if you get like 1 node a day and it takes you 16 years to cap 1 skill, that's also really fucking boring. So it's like, where's the balance? Where's the middle ground, right? They have to kind of keep you wanting more, keep you wanting to log in, but also make you feel like you can make a lot of progress. And you see this a lot in drop rate. This is like, people are like, oh, the drop rate for the beginning items is so garbage. It's like, well, if you want people to be able to make a lot of progress on drop rate and feel like upgrading that is worth it, but you still want people at the end to not like kill one boss, get 1 million drops, right? And still want that to be a slow process, then the starting process has to be even slower and has to be really bad. Like that's the only way you can make that work. Otherwise, it's either the time invested doesn't feel worth it, or the final result doesn't feel worth it. Like it's got to be at the start that you feel that it's so shit that you want to work on it, right? It's kind of sadly it's necessary. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yep.
All right, so bossing, and are you working on a new project now for bossing? You're trying to see if you can solo the Lotus and Damien, I guess?
Yeah, and then I'm not sure if I can get into like a lucid, right? The next one, because the next gear says like arcane, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah, it's
need to do
crazy.
lucid.
Like 2 years ago, arcane was pretty much impossible for people to get, and now people who've been playing for a week are like, I guess I work on arcanes, and it's like, I still have to reality check myself on like how fast everything's going. Yeah. And I was like, Genesis is the thing where people really start working on, and it's like Black Mage clearing, and then 8 months of BM clearing. Yeah. I mean, that's a slow process when you're stuck on normal bosses for a while. But since you get the 250 pretty free, it comes down to getting everything else upgraded to the level of what does a level 250 mean, and then as long as it does that, and you learn the mechanics of the boss, then hopefully those arcanes they start coming. Yeah.
Excited. Very excited.
Yeah, the bosses do get progressively harder. So if you do enjoy bossing and you do that a lot, you will notice that some mechanics return, and you will definitely notice that you have a leg up on people who just like blew through the game or just got carried. They will be quite a bit more clueless in the beginning on like what happens, and it'll die to absolutely everything. When you think about it, you can die to everything. Like if you just stand in stuff or respond too slowly, it's pretty easy to die to everything. But your muscle memory will just take over. If you've already dealt with it in other bosses, like, you will start moving out of the way already, and you'll just adapt to things faster, which I think is healthy for a playthrough, especially if you like bossing, because it's gonna get more and more and more complicated as you go. So, and if you've seen some harder boss fights, like you've seen like Saren and Kalos, and there's so much stuff going on.
Honestly, I feel like half of these boss mechanics are kind of BS. Like
yeah, there are some
like
like
Magnus meteors. I think like Chaos Pap, the laser thing is kind of annoying. Yeah, just like some mechanics in the game are kind of pretty lazy in a sense. I feel like it's just like, oh, we're just gonna kill you for no reason, and you can't really do much about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's cool to see the boss from like different perspectives, to see what other people do on bosses, because there might be things that you can do that you hadn't considered yet. For example, like if you're doing Papalatus, like your dark side, like you can stand in the big rifts on the ground, the blue ones.
Huh.
You could just stand in that, yeah, and then that opens up a whole other dimension where that makes it much easier to actually block the lasers while the rifts are going on, and the only thing you have to worry about at that point is the clocks, right? The purple clocks that can literally clock you. Those do a lot of damage. But that opens up more options. Yeah, but with CPAP, the thing is also sometimes it breaks, and the claw hands are like in a different height, and then that can kind of break the boss fight.
When I'm trying to like flash jump up or something to avoid stuff, I just like just go into the claw. I'm like, okay.
It's one of those boss fights, especially with HMAC as well. It does feel overwhelming, and it does feel lazy, and it definitely is to an extent, but you can get better at it. And if you do get better at that, it makes other bosses easier. So the main thing with HMAC, I would say, is it teaches you a very good lesson, and it punishes you very hard for it if you don't do it properly. Same thing for HMAC, by the way. Like Darkseid blocks the balls falling from the ceiling. It just doesn't do any damage to you. Darkseid is a very, very powerful tool.
Darkseid is OP.
Yeah, is OP as fuck, yeah. But what it does teach you is you need to stay close to the boss to deal damage. But if you get too close, you might get like slammed. So it teaches you about positioning, kiting, going out of reach, walking back into reach, that kind of thing. And that helps you a lot. If you do that with HMAC, if you do that well, that helps you a lot with Lotus. Like the big Lotus push, right? If you're just on the range of the attack, if you just move back like 2 pixels as soon as he attacks and then move back into it, he doesn't push you at all. And that helps you like during the laser phase. If there's platforms, you want to stay close to him so you trigger out his attack. And as soon as he attacks, you just walk to the back of the platform and then walk back in front towards him. And that way you can just walk back and forth and he keeps attacking, but he just doesn't hit you because once you get used to that range, he doesn't really get to push you. But if you go to the edge of the platform and then he pushes you, your only way is up. And then if something comes falling from the ceiling, for most classes that becomes yikes. But again, Darkseid also blocks those things falling from the ceiling in Lotus. So there's a lot of value there in Darkseid that you'll find many time, specifically Night Lords, because they didn't have a built-in iframe. They're very unhappy with their survivability. But once, every single boss started doing that, just dropping things for the ceiling, and they noticed that they could immune a whole lot of stuff, he was like, nah, we don't really need an iframe, just don't mess with our Darkseid, because that stuff is so much more valuable. No cooldown, or not really like no cooldown in that sense. So it's much more useful in that way.
I see.
Yeah, that's how the game can kind of evolve to, even though if your kit doesn't move with it, but sometimes it moves into your kit, so then it actually helps you out. Yeah. Okay, so I guess we kind of talked about a little bit of like how strong do you need to be and where damage comes from and stuff. So how familiar would you say you are with my stream and with the resources and stuff that I have?
So I used to watch your like progression videos while I was working. But I kind of get like the basic level of understanding for like the game systems, like star forcing and stuff. But it's more like the deeper intricacies, like transposing, like I have no idea like when you should do that, or like it's more, I guess it's more for me, it's more like saving my resources, because I said like I have a limited amount of time that I want to spend on this game, and it's just like if I'm blowing messes up for no reason, then what's the point of playing? I'm just skating myself,
A little bit, yeah. Possibly, unless you get lucky.
Yeah.
Well, you get to the point where in the beginning it's just fun to spend, and because you actually see gains very quickly, and you should probably be spending, right? Because how much you can gain compared to how strong you already are, like being able to triple your range, that just means that it was an event, but that means that you should be spending, right? Because if you can make that much gains, that's a clear indicator. But once you get further, especially once you just going past 17 star, you just need backups. Otherwise, you run the risk of not being able to complete your set anymore, or just running out of backups. You need the time to get those backups. And in that time, you're going to be making your money, so that by the time the next event comes around, you'll be able to take that money and take those resources, take those backups, put them together, and make your gains, right? And that's yeah, that just makes sense. It feels like you're kind of getting railroaded, like, oh, the game is basically telling me, like, if you spend off event, you're a chump or something. But if you want to, you can spend off event. The biggest thing I do off event is just cubing, because even cube sales and stuff, it's not that huge of a sale. Plus, they're pretty rare to get. It's much more common to have the star forcing sales, or Sunday star forcing perks. So I usually wait for those to do star forcing, and then after that I'll in between I'll work on potential, basically.
Yeah, so that's why I stopped my superior Golix stuff, because I can't do the helix, obviously. So it's like I actually just got those from drop, like free for all, like carry drops. So I stopped at 16 stars because I didn't like want to boom it. Yeah. Then I'm not sure like when when I should push to like 20 stars, or like how is that like when I start feeling like I can't do any more like meaningful upgrades, like I start pushing 20 stars for like Lucid or something.
Yes, well, so that's why I kind of asked about the commands and stuff in the sessions, right? So what I kind of used to keep track of, so why I think the level is a big indicator is because of the difference in the level with the targets that you're attacking. And I think it's a good idea to make sure that your level kind of becomes the main indicator of how strong is your character and what can your character do. But connected with that, of course, is all the other stats, right? They kind of have to follow in line. Your stat is, of course, very important. It has to kind of track what your level is, otherwise your level still doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
But as long as all the other stats track your level, then I think the stuff that you could do around it, like how do you get to those stats exactly, doesn't matter as much. If somebody likes leveling a whole bunch of different characters and they get there early on by having like an 8k legion by the time their main is like 250, then that's fine too, right? That it just means that all the other systems where you need to, where someone else would have to push harder, like they would have to get higher star force and more, better potential and better flames, you can just be a little bit less of that and just do more of the stuff that you enjoy, right? And if just like working on Legion is like a literal hell on earth for you, then that just means that your main character is going to have to be played more, is going to have to make more money, probably has to participate in events more, and then just go a little bit harder on all of the other sources and put the bar a little bit higher. Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
I think my internet just died.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, just cool stuff. Yeah, because I was trying to use a command in my chat and it just wouldn't go through. So apparently I was like, and I was just